The first story I wanted to talk to you guys about today was an update on the state of the communist hellhole tyranny zone that is Australia. Man. So this is probably the worst place on Earth in terms of viral-based tyranny right now. And so it's the one I'm watching the closest to sort of see what the future is if it continues getting worse here. So I just wanted to read little bits of the story about Melbourne. They're calling it stage 4 coronavirus lockdown because, you know, calling things stages makes it sound more official, which makes it sound less arbitrary, which, you know, helps people not see the tyranny for what it is quite as clearly. But let's read. Sweeping new restrictions, including a nighttime curfew, have been imposed across Melbourne under Stage 4 restrictions, and regional Victoria will move to Stage 3 restrictions from Thursday. Premier Daniel Andrews said 671 new coronavirus cases have been detected, 6,300 infections now active in the state. 7 people have died in the last 24 hours, taking the state's death toll to 123. 6 of the 7 cases are linked to aged care outbreaks. There are now 385 people in Victorian hospitals, 38 of whom are in intensive care. The state's aged care outbreak has now grown to over 1,000. The premier said this is an unacceptably high number of community transmission cases. Those mysteries that community transmission is in many respects our biggest challenge and the reason why we need to move to a different set of rules, he said. So, starting 6 p.m. Sunday, a state of disaster has been declared across Victoria, which will act in addition to the state of emergency. Further restrictions targeting workplaces will be announced on Monday. Residents of metropolitan Melbourne and the Mitchell Shire are almost halfway through what was meant to be a 6-week lockdown under Stage 3. Let's see. Therefore, we have to do more, and we have to do more right now, he said. An evening curfew will be implemented across Melbourne from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. every day, which started Sunday night, forbidding anyone from leaving their home except for working, receiving, or giving care. How is that not just de facto imprisonment? And how do people not see it as such? And how do people not see the evil people doing this to them for what they are? I'm asking obvious questions. Under Stage 4 restrictions, Melbourne residents will only be allowed to shop and exercise within 5 kilometers of their homes. Supermarkets will remain open for trading hours of their choice, but Andrew said shopping should happen outside of the curfew hours. Jim Jesus donates $2 to my face that he says is a state of emergency. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. I want to assure all Victorians, supermarkets, the butcher, the baker, food, beverage, groceries, those types of settings, there will be no impact there. Only one person from each household will be able to shop at a time, once a day. For those under the Stage 4 restrictions, exercise outside of the home will only be allowed for 1 hour at a time, and recreational activities like golf and fishing will be banned. Yeah, rip your entire business if you happen to have a golf course or, a fishing shop. Not worried about those. Restaurants and cafes may continue to offer takeaway and home delivery, and bottle shops will remain open. The premier said public transport times tables would be reduced to a fraction of what they were now. But people are still allowed to visit their intimate partners even if they live more than 5 kilometers apart. Oh, thank God! You're allowing me to visit the person I love. Wow, how reasonable of you. Weddings are banned within Melbourne except on compassionate grounds. Oh, I take back what I just said. Weddings are banned. They have the power to ban weddings, apparently, ladies and gentlemen.
You can only visit their house. You can't visit them and get married, right? So,
rules for funerals remain unchanged. There's only 10 mourners, plus those conducting the ceremony, allowed. So only 10 people can be sad enough to attend someone's funeral. Oh, and thankfully leaving your house for the purposes of going to a funeral, that's still allowed. And so then regional Victoria will go to stage 3 restrictions, which are not quite as severe as all of that. Remote learning for most students. And then the police, of course, get broader powers under a state of disaster. The police have somehow, magically, I'm not sure how this legislature justifies it, but the police can now suspend acts of parliament. The police minister, Lisa Neville, said the state of disaster was decided on to make sure the government had clear power to impose and enforce a curfew. This is martial law, euphemized under some other name, under just calling it the ability to suspend parliamentary acts. Just martial law. Congratulations, Australia. I think you're the first for the viral stuff, right? Maybe New York? Jim Jesus says, if it pleases the crown, I'd like to see my wife. Yeah, it's utter insanity. She said it would help police to enforce the curfew and suggested it would enable them to prevent all protests or move along crowds at settings like supermarkets if physical distancing rules were not being followed. Ms. DeVille said the legislation allowed her to appoint police as authorized officers, removing the current need for police to have a health department official with them on jobs like compliance checks. Chief Health Officer says he hoped the broad and deep measures would have a significant impact on transmission. It will fail if a proportion of the population doesn't take it seriously, or if we think that it's just for a couple days, but not for the next 6 weeks in full. All right, guys. This is the watershed moment for Australia. Your government is declaring that it can do these things. And once it has done them once, it will do them again and again and again and more frequently and for less justifiable reasons. And they have slipped the tip in. Are you gonna take it? I bet you will. Does that mean? I don't care. I bet Australia will. I have yet to see Australia not take something. Let me know if I'm wrong.